from Frachelli. In this video, we're gonna make homemade pasta. Yes, homemade. We're not even gonna use a pasta machine. I'm gonna show you how to do it every step of the way. And we're gonna serve it with a rustic homemade tomato sauce. Also super simple, super delicious. Cameron and Courtney, you ready to start cooking? First, I'm gonna teach you how to make the sauce. Plus, if the fresh pasta is a little too ambitious, you still need to make the sauce. We're gonna start there. To start the sauce, the tomatoes, so we're using San Marzano, imported from Italy tomatoes, and these are peeled in the can. Get the right tomatoes, it's gonna make a big difference, I promise. We've got half a white onion and 4 cloves of garlic chopped finely. We're gonna put some heat on the stove, and then on the bottom of the pot, gonna put a nice coating of olive oil. You wanna cover the entire bottom of the pot. I threw in the onions first because they take longer to cook than the garlic, and I just want to spread it around and make sure it's got a nice coating of oil on all the onion. And this whole process is going to take about 5 to 8 minutes, so a couple minutes first on the onion. What I'm doing here is just sliding it around so it gets nice and even on the bottom. Make sure the bits off the side, just so it all cooks evenly. Now that the onion's been cooking for a few minutes, I'm gonna go ahead and throw in the garlic and just let this cook for about another 2 or 3 minutes. The garlic will burn if you let it cook too long. Also, traditionally, a lot of these tomato or marinara sauces have about a whole onion and about 1 or 2 cloves of garlic. I prefer less onion and more garlic, so that's why we use 4 cloves and half an onion. Of course, this is a preference, so feel free to try it in between or use a whole onion and less garlic too. I like the punch of the garlic though. For the tomatoes, we want this really rustic, so we don't want to blend it. I'm going to use my hands and put in the tomatoes. I also pour the entire can in here, including the juices, and this will leave it nice and pulpy. So go ahead and just squeeze the tomatoes for about a minute or 2. Looking good. We don't want to burn them, so now we're going to go ahead and pour in the tomato mixture. Splash a little bit there, but that's okay. Make sure you get it all in, let it drip. And give it a nice good stir so we don't burn anything on the bottom. So just stir for about a minute, and then what we're gonna do is I'm gonna keep the heat high and get this to a low boil, and then let it boil for about a minute or 2. See, now the sauce is boiling. We let this boil for about a minute and a half, 2 minutes, and then we're gonna lower the heat down because it's still gonna boil a bit. I'm gonna lower the heat down to a more medium simmer. I'm just gonna add a little bit of salt. So we don't want to over salt it because you could always add salt as it's cooking to taste. We want to let it cook a little bit of taste. Same thing, just a little bit of pepper, could always add more. And then I got 4 beautiful leaves of fresh basil here, putting those in the sauce, and that's really it. So now we're gonna let this cook for half an hour, stirring it throughout the process and also testing it along the way for salt and pepper. Ready to start making our pasta, and it's very simple. The basic ingredients are eggs and unbleached all-purpose flour. So the general rule is half a cup of flour to 1 egg. I have pretty large eggs, so I've got 2 eggs and 1 and about a 1/4 cup of flour. It's always okay if you have a little bit more. We could swipe it off to the side if we don't need it. So the first step we're gonna do is clear this out, and then I'm gonna make basically like a bird's nest with the flour and put a little area in the middle here and make walls of it so that we could beat the eggs in the middle here. I also just got some extra flour on the side, so as I need it while I'm making it, it's ready. And you do get pretty dirty making this. This way I can put the bag away and not have to keep opening it with dirty, sticky hands. Go ahead and crack the egg into the middle there. Grab it, but we're going to start mixing this up here in the middle and slowly breaking up the egg and adding a little bit more flour and reinforcing our walls a little bit because I did not build that one too well. And then we're going to slowly start putting in the flour and beating it in. Once we got a little bit of a mixture, I'm going to put in just a teaspoon of finely grated salt. Little teaspoon of water in it, makes it a little easier to work. The real purist may scoff at me for that, but we're going to keep stirring it up here. Use the fork as much as you can so you don't get your hands too sticky. Now that we have a nice ball here, this is by no means done, but we're going to put this on the side and clean off the surface here and make sure it's clean and dry, so let's snap to a clean surface. Look at that, nice and clean. Now we're gonna go and just lightly flour the surface Again, make sure it's nice and clean, nice and dry, otherwise it's gonna run into all sorts of problems. Now, got a little upper body workout. We're gonna go ahead and knead this dough for about 10 minutes and adding flour as you need it so it doesn't stick to the surface. And basic motion, you wanna fold it up and then push it down with the palm of your hand like so. And I need a little bit more flour here because this is sticking a little bit. And then we're 10 minutes. This counts as cardio, muscular work, everything. I'm not going to the gym today, counting this. Okay, our dough is coming together really nicely. I've been kneading it for about 10 minutes. It's a nice, even consistency. And what I'm gonna do now is, just to make it easier to work with, I'm gonna cut it in half. Slice it there. Oh, it's looking really nice. And what I'm gonna do now is roll it out pretty much as flat as I can. And this is really what the pasta machine does. I'm just gonna put a little bit of flour on the rolling pin too, and roll this out flat, and as flat as you can, like paper thin. Now what I'm gonna do is, I'm gonna lightly flour a cutting board so it doesn't stick. And I'm gonna make a very nice rectangular strip of this. Just cut it very evenly. Straight rectangle here. I'm just gonna smooth out the flour on it so it doesn't get, we want it starchy, but we don't want it over floured. Now we're gonna let this sit for about 25 minutes. Now that the pasta is dry, what we're gonna do is fold it up and then slice it. So to fold it, I'm just gonna fold it into thirds or a quarter, just like so. Try to keep it nice and straight and nice and square, like that. And then, now for the thickness, you gotta cut it really thin. For reference, fettuccine is like 1/6 of an inch, but if you cut it really thin, it's gonna break. So about as thin as you could cut it. Slice it like that. And then quickly unroll it so it doesn't stick together, and then you have a nice piece of pasta. Look at that, looking pretty good. Let's cut one more, make sure they're consistent. So nice and thin, slice it like that, and then roll them out so they don't stick. And leave them on the side, beautiful. Now we're gonna slice all this up and then let it sit for about another 5 minutes. All right, while our pasta is drying, I'm gonna just set up my pasta station here, as I like to call it. I'll just walk you through it really quickly. So obviously to make pasta, we need boiling water. So I started boiling some water. I also put the sauce to the back burner, just on the lowest setting, just so it stays warm. It's already cooked. And then I got a nice non-stick frying pan with a nice chunk of butter in it. And basically what I'm gonna do is take the pasta from here, coat it in butter, and then cook it a little bit more with the sauce in the pan. So I added a little bit of salt to the sauce, but also I'm gonna be topping the pasta with parmigiano reggiano cheese, and this is pretty salty too. It's go time, the pasta is dry, ready to go. The water's at a roaring boil. Make sure the water is well salted as well. Now fresh pasta cooks really quickly, so about 2 minutes, but we're gonna cook it for about 90 seconds and then finish it off in the pan so it's nice and al dente. So let's start the timer and get going. So I'll go ahead and just give this a quick stir with the tongs too, nice and gentle so we don't break the pasta, but also just so it doesn't stick together. And this is gonna happen quickly. I'm gonna fire up the heat on this burner here and get the butter nice and melted too. Pasta's cooked for 1.5 minutes. I'm just gonna drip dry it like this, throw it in the butter, lower the heat a bit so we don't wanna burn it. Get it all in there. Now for this stage, we want this pretty much under 1 minute, so we're just gonna quickly coat the pasta in butter, because again, we don't want to burn the pasta. We really want it to cook in the sauce and the butter. This so it won't stick together, and get some heat on it. Now I'm gonna go ahead and put in some sauce. Now for this step, we wanna do this for about 2 minutes. The best trick to figure out if it's cooked correctly is take a little piece and eat a piece of it. Then you'll know. So taste test it yourself, add the sauce in. We don't wanna soak it in sauce and drown it, but we want a decent amount of sauce on it. And also we don't want the pasta to burn on the pan. So mixing it up, make sure it's cooking evenly. Don't let it sit, because then it's gonna just burn on the bottom. and 2 minutes here, and then give it a taste. Make sure it's to your preference. All right, we're ready to plate this baby up. Let's get a close up here, Courtney. So we're just gonna go ahead and use the tongs, twirl this all up nicely. Put it in there. Nice twirl. And I'm gonna go ahead and add, pardon me, a nice generous coating of the parmigiano reggiano. Top it with a nice crack of black pepper, or 3. And then just for presentation, a nice beautiful little fresh basil leaf on top. And now we have a homemade pasta, handmade, no machine. We made a nice beautiful simple rustic tomato sauce. Everything's gonna be fresh and delicious. Got one twirled up nice on my fork. Moment of real truth here. Gonna give this a taste. Nice and al dente, really good. Sorry, mouthful. Came out really nice. The sauce is so simple but so delicious. The tomatoes make a big difference. Make sure you get the right ones. Fresh pasta, it's a pain in the butt, but it is rewarding at the end. It's definitely impressive for a date or something like that. If you like the video, please actually like it on YouTube. That'll help us out a lot. Also, please subscribe to the channel. But most of all, thank you so much for watching. I hope you make this at home. If you do, write in the comments how yours came out. And in the meantime, see you guys next time.